Jeff Bogard, the man who had spent most of his life caring for the city of Southtown and its orphans, is dead. Murdered by none other than his former friend and training partner, the emerging crime lord of Southtown, Geese Howard. This horrible act left his newly adopted children, Terry and Andy, orphans once again. The death of Jeff Bogard also allowed Geese to get his hands on one of the Jinn Scrolls of Immortality, specifically the one that was passed to Jeff from Tung Fu. To protect the siblings from the cruelty of Southtown streets, the legendary master Tung Fu, who had previously trained both Jeff and Geese, took Terry and Andy in. The brothers, who had some basic training from Jeff, wanted to challenge Geese and avenge their father's death. However, Tung explained that they were too young, inexperienced, and far from strong enough to take on the powerful Geese Howard. Tung began training them in the art of Hakyuku Seiken. While Terry adapted and absorbed Tung's teachings easily, Andy struggled. It wasn't that Andy was weaker, but his different personality affected his ability to learn Hakyuku Seiken. Recognizing that his teachings might not suit Andy, Master Tung reached out to an old friend in Japan, the ninja master Hanzo Shiranui, to ask if he would take Andy under his tutelage. It turned out that during his youth, Hanzo Shiranui had embarked on a warrior's journey across the globe. During this time, he met Jeff Bogard, and the two traveled together seeking out strong opponents. Their journey led them to Stroheim Castle in Germany, where they faced a young Wolfgang Krauser whose strength was overwhelming, even as a child. Hanzo sustained a serious leg injury in that battle. Feeling it was fate that Jeff's son would now come to train under him, Hanzo agreed to take Andy in. This meant that Terry and Andy had to go their separate ways. The brothers made a pact to train for 10 years and then meet again in Southtown to confront Geese and avenge their father's death. During these years, Terry trained under Master Tung and learned to manipulate ki energy. He traveled the world testing his skills as a street fighter. Along the way, he defeated many strong opponents and left an impression on them, like the young breakdancer known as Duck King, who, after losing to Terry and feeling humiliated, dedicated his life to training and developed his own fighting style. Meanwhile, Andy was quickly adopted into the Shiranui family and excelled in learning the martial art of Kopoken from Hanzo. He also learned few techniques from Hanzo's friend, the old master Jubei Yamada. Though he did not speak Japanese, he befriended Hanzo's granddaughter Mai, who became his Japanese teacher. Within 6 months, Andy was able to speak Japanese fluently. As they grew closer, Mai developed feelings for Andy, while he remained focused on his training. During his travels, Andy also met Joe Higashi, a strong Muay Thai practitioner who quickly became his best friend. Joe, a Japanese martial artist, had traveled to Thailand to learn Muay Thai and soon became the champion after defeating the then title holder Hua Jai. As Geese Howard's influence grew, so did his control over Southtown. He surrounded himself with powerful warriors, including the former Muay Thai champion Hua Jai, as well as Raiden, a former pro wrestler, and finally Billy Khan, a British fighter who masters the art of Santetsu Kon. Billy, an orphan taken in by Geese, was fiercely loyal to him. But his younger sister, Lily, whom he was taking care of, feared that her brother was risking his life for her sake. Geese's obsession with martial arts led him to host several iterations of the King of Fighters tournament, which served as a gambling event for the mob families under his control. Years passed, and both Terry and Andy had grown into strong young men. They were ready to return to Southtown and face Geese. Andy, who had developed a close relationship with Mai and not wanting to endanger her, left Southtown without telling the young Mai. The return of the Bogard brothers coincided with a new King of Fighters tournament, hosted by none other than Geese Howard. Terry arrived in Southtown just in time for the tournament and reunited with his brother. On his arrival though, Terry had a brief encounter with Geese, reigniting his anger. But he held back and decided to save the fight for the tournament. Joining them was Joe Higashi, who learned about the Bogards' tragic history and entered the tournament to help them achieve their revenge. Several fighters from around the world joined this new iteration of the famed King of Fighters tournament. Among them was Duck King, Terry's self-proclaimed nemesis, who now believed he was ready to take on the man who had humiliated him years ago. Another fighter is Richard Meyer, the owner of the famous Pow Pow Cafe in Southtown, a popular hangout for strong fighters who enjoy both good drinks and good brawls. Michael Max, a former heavyweight boxing champion, also entered the tournament. He had been kicked out of the professional boxing circuit for nearly killing an opponent in the ring. Tsugumi Sendo, a high school student participating in an exchange program in Southtown, found herself drawn into the city's unnatural obsession with fighting. Another notable participant was Toji Sakata, a once renowned Aikido master who had lost his passion for fighting after the murder of his best friend, Tatsumi Suo. Tatsumi had been the man who originally trained Geese Howard. Upon learning that Geese was hosting the tournament, Toji decided to enter to avenge his friend's death at Geese's hands. The King of Fighters tournament has begun. Terry, in particular, was seen as the star of the event, quickly gaining many fans around Southtown. Among them was a young woman named Alice Nakata, who had been captivated by Terry ever since she saw him in a street fight. Alice began following the lone wolf, hoping to learn his fighting style by observing his battles. She also seemed to have developed a romantic interest in him. Through the run of the tournament, Terry faced his self-proclaimed nemesis Duck King in the brackets. Despite Duck's furious new fight style, he was no match for the Lone Wolf. Throughout the tournament, Geese Howard closely watched the matches, especially keeping an eye on the Bogard brothers. He didn't realize they were the adoptive sons of his old friend Jeff Bogard until he noticed their last name. The revelation reignited his hatred for the Bogards and Tong Fu. Andy and Joe also excelled in their performances. Joe faced his old nemesis Hua Jai, who was now one of Geese's subordinates. The fight was so intense, but Joe managed to defeat the former Muay Thai champion once again. This defeat had a profound effect on Hua Jai, who realized his losses stemmed from a weak spirit. He immediately decided to leave Geese's employment, seeking a new path. Andy, the Kopoken practitioner, faced another of Geese's henchmen, the formidable Raiden. Despite the tough challenge, Andy won his match, showcasing his growing skill. But it was Terry who stood out the most, defeating every opponent and reaching the tournament's final round against Billy Khan, the undefeated champion of the King of Fighters. The battle was fierce, but despite Billy's strength and cunning, he was no match for Terry's power. Terry won, becoming the new King of Fighters champion. Furious at the outcome, and now fully recognizing Terry as Jeff's son, Geese ordered his men to capture Terry and bring him to Geese Tower, his lair overlooking all of the city of Southtown. Geese, confident in his invincibility, decided to confront Terry alone and kill him with his bare hands.
Round one.
Seeing this as his chance to eliminate Jeff's legacy, he ordered his men not to interfere, and the two began their fateful battle atop Geese Tower. This was Terry's toughest battle yet. Geese was the strongest opponent he had ever faced, and the fight was heavily one-sided, with Terry struggling against the crime lord's overwhelming strength. Just as Terry was on the brink of defeat, memories of his father's murder and the harsh life that followed flashed through his mind. He also recalled his years of training and everything he had learned. Fueled by determination, passion, and hatred, Terry summoned all of his strength for a final attack. The move was so powerful that it sent Geese flying off the tower. As Geese fell, Terry, regaining his composure, rushed to save him, but it was too late. Geese plummeted to his apparent death. With Geese's fall, it seemed the Bogards' quest for revenge had come to an end. Terry left Geese Tower and reunited with Andy and Joe. Now that their lifelong mission was complete, Terry began to wonder about his future and purpose. However, through his participation in the King of Fighters tournament, Terry found a new home in Southtown and a family and the friends he made along the way, such as Richard Meyer and his former rival Duck King. The news of Geese's apparent demise threw Southtown's underworld into chaos. However, this turmoil was welcomed by a mysterious figure watching from afar. Geese's half-brother, Wolfgang Krauser. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Big shout out to the channel's patrons and premium subscribers for supporting the channel. You can become a patron by checking the link below this video, or a premium subscriber by clicking the join button below. Patrons and premium subscribers get early access to all the lore videos and documentaries, as well as other digital goodies. Until next time, thank you guys for watching.